Okay. All right, welcome everyone to the October 16th, 2024 Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is an in-person and virtual meeting with Environmental Quality Commission members, city staff, and members of the public. Can we, that was the prompt, that was me. Now I would like to introduce staff and EQC members present in the room. We have Chair Schmidt, Vice Chair McKenna, Commissioners Headley, LaRocca, Kissel, Meyer, and Pellegrini-Opera. The Commissioner Hill is absent. And staff present include Sustainability Manager Rachel Lunder and Management Analyst Lori Paz. Ms. Lunder, would you please provide the instructions to the Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Schmidt. I'd like to share a process for public comment now. If you are in person, there are public comment cards over on that ledge there, and you can fill them out and hand them to either myself or Ori. For those who are attending virtually, if you'd like to provide public comment, you can hit the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, or you can press *9 on your phone and we will be able to unmute you. And tonight we can have public comment for up to 3 minutes. That's it for me for now, and I'll return the meeting back to you, Chair Schmidt.
Fantastic, thanks. Under the public comment section, the public may address the Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Commission once under public comment for that limit of 3 minutes that Ms. Lunder talked about. While you are not required to provide your name or city of residence, it is helpful. The Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Commission cannot respond to non-agenda items brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Sustainability Manager Lunder, please call for public comment.
Sure. For public comment for items not on the agenda, you can grab a public comment card on that ledge and hand it back to Ori or myself. You can press *9 if you're calling in from a landline, or you can press the raise hand button on Zoom and we'll be able to unmute you. I don't see any public comment in the room. And we'll give a moment for folks online and on the phone. Okay, I don't see any online either, so we can return the meeting back to you, Chair.
Fantastic. So why don't we commence with regular business? And the first up is item D1, approving the September 18th, 2024 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. Were there any clarifying questions from the EQC before taking public comment on this item? Sandra, do you have any public comment?
There's clarifying question.
No clarifying question.
I was just gonna note a typo.
Okay.
It's BPS and it's BSP in this
Oh,
report.
perfect. So changing from BSP to BPS. On what item was that?
B2.
Any other clarifying questions? Nope. Ms. Lunder, do we have any public comment on this item?
Okay, let me call for public comment. If you're in the room and you'd like to make public comment on item D1, approving the September 18th minutes, there are public comment cards over there and you can grab one, fill it out and hand it back to us. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button. And if you're calling in from a landline, you can press *9 and we'll be able to unmute you. I don't have any cards in the room and I'm not seeing any online, but we'll give it 1 second. And then I'd offer when making a motion, if you could add that friendly amendment to update the minutes from BSP to BPS. We can make that change. No public comment online either, so turn the meeting back to you.
Fantastic. So why don't we open it for EQC discussion and or a motion for the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes with.
And I seconded.
With the friendly amendment.
We have a motion by Commissioner Headley and a second by Pellegrini-Opera to approve the September 18th Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes with a small edit on D2, editing BSP to BPS. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we have to do roll call vote actually, since we have one missing. So we'll do roll call vote. Chair Schmidt.
Aye.
Chair McKenna.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill is absent. Commissioner Headley LaRocca.
Yes.
Commissioner Kissel.
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Pellegrini-Opera.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes with 6 in favor, none opposed, and 1 absent. Thank you. I'll return the meeting to you.
Fantastic. So let's move on to item D2, a presentation from Sustainable San Mateo County. For this item, we have a couple of guest speakers who will introduce themselves, and I'll turn over to Ms. Carter and Ms. Hubbard to do that. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for inviting Sustainable San Mateo County to speak at today's meeting. I'm Sarah Hubbard, Executive Director of SSMC. The SSMC team really appreciates Menlo Park's commitment to climate action and EQC's interest in learning more about our programs and how we can support your goals. Next slide, please. Today, we'll briefly tell you about SSMC and our programs, demonstrate the recently launched Sustainability Dashboard, and share a few metrics to help Menlo Park understand its progress and reach its sustainability goals. Next slide, please. SSMC has been active in San Mateo County for over 30 years. We work to ensure a sustainable future for everyone in the county. And we do this by serving as a resource hub, advocating for sustainable practices, and inspiring a collective commitment to a more sustainable and resilient community. Today, we'll focus on metrics and solutions related to your climate action plan, but our work addresses all 3 E's of sustainability: the environment, the economy, and social equity issues. I'm going to pass things off to our communications and outreach lead, Molly Carter, to tell you more about our programs and show you the sustainability dashboard and metrics. Molly?
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Molly Carter. I'm the Outreach and Communications Lead for Sustainable San Mateo County, and it's great to be here or here virtually with you tonight. We drive action through our core programs to inform, inspire, and advocate for change. So starting on the left-hand side here, we produce an annual indicators report with data and solutions for San Mateo County that focuses on one topic. This year's topic is equitable paths to EV charging infrastructure. And that is actually happening next Thursday, October 24th, and we'll have some information later about that. You may be familiar with our annual awards, which recognize pioneers in our community, and Menlo Park has been well represented in our awards, starting with Menlo Park Vacuum and Fix-It Shop, who was an honorable mention back in 2002. Some of the other winners include Kepler's Books in 2016. In 2020, Menlo Park was honored with several other cities for your great work around your REACH codes, as well as the campaign for fossil-free building in Silicon Valley was also a winner. And then in 2023, Diane Bailey and Tom Cabot won for their work with Menlo Spark and the work that they did with the campaign for fossil-free building in Silicon Valley. Applications for our 2025 awards are now open. We also host webinars and roundtables throughout the year with experts who share insights with the community. And our Ideas Bank is a collection of over 80 sustainability programs and policies that have been implemented successfully. Cities use these to accelerate their own implementations. And we will be working with Menlo Park in the future to feature several of your successful programs, including the electrification fee waiver and your program for electric landscaping equipment. So today we're going to share with you this final program, our Sustainability Dashboard, which tracks key metrics by city to help cities know where they are making progress and how they compare to other cities. And those doing well on a metric may have policies and programs that others can adopt. So now I'm going to show you the dashboard. And Rachel, if you don't mind clicking on that video, it will play. Or it won't.
Oh,
Hi, SSMC.
let me reshare my screen here.
Great.
Dashboard that is useful to get insights into each city's progress building a sustainable community. In this video, we'll show you how it works. The dashboard includes 12 sustainability topics and over 90 metrics.
I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare with the volume.
Hi,
Hi.
SSMC's Sustainability Dashboard.
I think if you do this.
In this video, we'll show you how it works. Hi, SSMC's Sustainability Dashboard is an easy-to-use tool to get insights into each city's progress building a sustainable community. In this video, we'll show you how it works. The dashboard includes 12 sustainability topics and over 90 metrics. To find the metric you need, use the drop-down menus to browse the available metrics. You can also search for a metric. Click into Select a Metric. On PC, press backspace. On a Mac, press the delete key. Then, type a keyword for the metric. You can also look at data by city for unincorporated areas or drill down by census tract. To use an interactive map, hover over any city on the map to see the name and the current value. Notice the corresponding trend line in the right chart, which turns black. For a comparative analysis, click on 2 or more cities on the map. This will highlight the cities on the chart for you to compare their trends over time. The dashboard includes from 6 to 16 years of historical data for each metric. Discover how your city is performing compared to the county average. Look for the yellow box for a detailed description of the metric and its sources. For further analysis or to share progress, you can download data as an image or CSV file or copy the URL to the chart. Use the dashboard to know what's happening in your city and across the region. How many childcare programs are there in your city? How many families have income lower than 30% of the county median? Which city has adopted a REACH code ordinance? How many solar panel permits were issued? How many renter units use gas as their primary heating source? And much more. We hope you can use the dashboard to accelerate your sustainability efforts. If you have any questions or comments, drop us a note. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, we can go back to it. So yeah, that is our dashboard. You can access it directly from our website. It's best to do it from a desktop computer rather than a phone. You simply go to the site, look for programs, look for dashboard, and we encourage you to try it for yourselves and explore more on your own time. But what I'm going to do tonight is review some of the metrics that we've collected about Menlo Park. Not all 90 metrics, don't worry. But because the EQC is charged primarily with advising the City Council on matters involving climate change, environmental protection, and sustainability, we'll focus primarily on transportation, energy, and climate adaptation, though I'll briefly mention some of the metrics tracked in the other topics. One note, these metrics are all from publicly available sources that we curate. The sources are listed on each slide, and they've been shared with the sustainability team here at Menlo Park, but they have not been verified by Menlo Park. And we will have time for Q&A after we present. Okay, so starting with transportation, which is a key area of Menlo Park's Climate Action Plan, we'd like to introduce the metrics that we track in our dashboard that are relevant to transportation and briefly review a couple of them. We track daily vehicle miles traveled, VMT, per commuter, which is useful to closely monitor transportation emission, since transportation emissions are based on VMT. We are also working on adding a running inventory of transportation emissions so that data is available to you and all cities as soon as the statistics become available. In the dashboard, we also show the number of zero-emission vehicles tracked by the California Energy Commission, and we show EV chargers tracked by the U.S. Department of Energy, which is updated and verified regularly. We also offer a view of commuters' transportation mode. So let's look first at on the next slide, daily vehicle miles traveled per commuter. The symbols in the top right corner are color-coded to show if your city is on track in advancing its goals. The icon on the left is the city trend, and to the right of that, the county comparison shows how you compare to the county average. So for this metric, VMT, Menlo Park does 25 miles per day per commuter. This is the lowest in the county and is showing a nice decline. One note that this data is through 2021, and so it does include the COVID impact in those later years. But still a really good trend there. On the next slide, you can see in our dashboard, you have easy access to data on the mode of transport. So here we show a really positive trend for Menlo Park. Among the commuters in Menlo Park, half drivers drive alone, which is among the lowest rates in the county. And the data also shows a declining trend. But again, we need to be mindful of COVID and the lockdown effect. Menlo Park has over a quarter of commuters that work from home, and this is one of the highest rates in the county. We also want to highlight that Menlo Park is the city with the highest number of biking commuters at 8%, outperforming all cities and trending up. So nice job there. Next, we'll move on to energy and water. Our current dashboard metrics related to energy include emissions from buildings, electricity and gas use, and solar and battery permits. Considering efforts to electrify existing buildings, we also track the fuel type used for heating in housing units by occupancy type. Most of the data is available at the census tract level, as well as the city level. And water consumption data, such as per capita consumption, recycled water consumption, will be added to the dashboard in the near future. So now I'll share a selection of these metrics. Here we show emissions from residential and commercial building energy use expressed per capita in metric tons of CO2 equivalent. In Menlo Park, the emissions from buildings have been around 2 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per capita since 2017. When compared to the rest of the county, the city's emissions from residential and commercial buildings is slightly higher than the average. Since the city is continuing to work on lowering building emissions, these estimates we provide, based on the latest available data, can be very useful to monitor progress. Regarding residential electricity consumption per capita, in Menlo Park, the residential electricity use is just above county average, though Atherton is a notable outlier, and when we remove Atherton from the data, the average is 2,085 kilowatt hours per capita, and Menlo Park consumption is still higher than the average. We recognize that Menlo Park has the goal to improve energy efficiency of new buildings and that you have a particular focus on achieving energy efficiency from existing buildings. So we're eager to hear more about the implementation of the options proposed in your CAP. Next, this is a visualization from the dashboard that shows the data on gas consumption per capita. The city's gas use is right above the county's average. And though it shows a decreasing trend, we are looking into this data source because it shows some anomalies that we are tracking down. So next, in the dashboard, you can also find the data on gas or electricity for primary heating by housing occupancy type. So this visualization shows the percentage of owner-occupied housing units that utilize gas as their primary heating source. And in Menlo Park, 84% of the housing units occupied by owners use gas as the primary source of heating. Together with San Carlos and Half Moon Bay, the city has the highest percentage in the county. And this is well above the county average and has increased a couple of percentage points in the last 10 years. But we see a more positive trend in renter-occupied housing when it comes to gas heating in rental units. In Menlo Park, 56% of rental units utilize gas as the primary heating source, which is around the county average, and it's decreased 13 percentage points in the last 10 years. This may be explained by the combination of newly built all-electric units and electrification of existing ones. And it would be interesting to learn more about what is behind this change. We would be happy to share any learnings with other cities that are struggling with rental unit electrification. And we would also like to learn about the city's strategy in light of the Berkeley ruling overturning the gas hookup ban. We can share, as you probably know, the city of San Mateo in a meeting just last week decided to pursue an updated REACH code based on energy performance. And while this energy performance standard is similar to the new building code mandates that will come from the state effective in the next cycle in 2026, San Mateo's council is looking to put this in place in 2025. The other option being considered that you probably also know about is the zero NOx standard. This is the approach Campbell is taking with their ordinance that bans appliances that emit any NOx, which doesn't outright ban gas appliances, but of course the easiest way to comply is with electric appliances. So we can talk more about this in the Q&A. But first we have a few more metrics to share. As one of the tree cities in our county, we are aware Menlo Park is committed to planting trees, and we're glad that the city recognizes the value of increasing urban tree canopy for its many benefits to the community. What we offer in our dashboard is a way to increase visibility of the progress and need within the community. This data can attract the attention of the community. It may increase physical and financial support from volunteers and businesses. And the county-wide inventory of tree canopy also allows us to easily see in a user-friendly interface which cities would benefit most from increasing the urban tree canopy. And this could facilitate conversations among cities. It may drive sharing of ideas, approaches, and solutions among jurisdictions that face similar challenges. And I wanted to show our census tract view of this metric. The census tract is available for many of our metrics, and it allows us to inspect at a closer level which track is more in need to more strategically allocate resources. In the case of tree planting, you can see the areas that have higher tree canopy coverage and areas that are in more need. Of course, the Bay Salt Marsh areas do not always support tree planting, but there are areas next to the bay that have a lower canopy than further west, so this might be an area to prioritize. The dashboard also includes metrics about solid waste, another key area for the city according to your climate action plan. At the moment, we keep a tally of the diversion program implemented, but we are planning to add more information about the composting programs and other diversion programs that have the potential to reduce emissions. And we have two final areas to share. In line with efforts to improve social equity and resilience, the metrics that we track include household income compared to county median and federal poverty level, which allows the monitoring of the size of the population that may struggle to afford housing, may have lower economic stability, they may be more vulnerable in events, and may require assistance, which could be useful for policymaking and planning. And by being on the dashboard, the data is available to all partner organizations and community services that work with the city to provide targeted assistance. We also include asthma rates in the population and in children, and we're planning to add other metrics such as ozone, the PM 2.5, and diesel particulate data, which are associated with asthma and respiratory illnesses. And lastly, we want to mention the metrics related to climate adaptation and mitigation. These include risks and expected annual loss from natural disasters that are likely to increase in our community due to global warming. And the data for this comes from FEMA. So we'll look at a couple data points here. The strategies that the city is planning to adopt aim at making the city more resilient to future climate impacts. And on the dashboard, there are metrics to identify city areas at higher risk and also identify where vulnerable populations are. So the map on the left shows the risk of coastal flooding relative to the rest of the US. The scores represent the national percentile ranking of the community's value compared to all other communities that are at the same level. And the scores range between 0, which is the lowest possible value, and 100, the highest possible value. So this means that 89% of the census tracts in the US have lower risk than this track. And the map on the right shows the percent of households living below 300% of the federal poverty line. This is the threshold used by Second Harvest Food Bank. They use it to adopt, to assess eligibility for households seeking nutrition assistance. So from comparing the two maps, one can see that the area in Menlo Park with the highest risk of coastal flooding is also home to a vulnerable population. So 35% of the households in this tract live below 300% of the poverty line. So having easy access to this kind of data for your community could be very helpful when city departments plan, write grants, or communicate with constituents or organizations. And with that, I conclude my review of the selected metrics, and I'll hand it back to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Molly, for your overview. We'd love to get your help understanding the context for these numbers so that we can accurately report on what's going on. This slide has a few questions to guide our conversation, which maybe you could paste in the chat or we can leave the slide up. But we're very flexible and are happy to talk about whatever is of interest to you.
Fantastic. So thanks. Why don't we, oh, did you have one more slide after this or? Why is he?
We have a couple announcements that we can go through, or we can leave it at the end.
Yeah, why don't we do them now and then, because we have a procedure we'll follow, but maybe we can make these quickly.
Perfect. Very quickly, upcoming next Thursday, October 24th is our indicators report event we wanted to let you know about. The focus will be on EV charging infrastructure. We'll be sharing an overview of San Mateo County's EV charging capacity, where we have gaps between supply and demand, and recommendations for expanding access. We'll have experts from Stanford, Peninsula Clean Energy, PG&E, as well as from Redwood City. And this event is a great networking opportunity that we think you could get a lot of value out of. And so you can register using that QR code or the URL, and we can send that along as well. And finally, like I said earlier, our applications are being accepted for the 2025 awards. Menlo Park has been very well represented, so we hope to see some more applications. It is our 26th year, and we accept applications from individuals, groups, or organizations. We also have a separate award for youth. So it's for high school students who attend high school in San Mateo County. And we also have a Green Building Award, and those applications are due by November 11th. Oh, and one more thing on the youth. We are hosting an informational webinar on October 29th, where any youth who are interested in this award, applying for it, we will walk through the application process and provide tips on applying and answer any questions. Thank you very much.
So why don't we check and see if there's any clarifying questions from the EQC before taking public comment? Well, I have one if that's okay. EV to plug ratio. Could you just like clarify what that means? I saw that on one of the slides. Sure.
Yeah, that is the number of EVs that are registered through the DMV to the number of public charging outlets that are available.
Which is dedicated charging outlets for EVs.
Yes.
Not, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have questions, but I think that they're on your bullet about asking for feedback. So I'll wait until we get past public.
Sounds good. I suspect we're going to have lots of questions in the other part. Why don't we check Ms. Lunder and see if we have any public comments on the item before we move on to EQC discussion.
Absolutely. We'll open public comment now. If you're in the room, there's public comment cards over there. You can grab one and return it to myself or Ori. And if you're online, you can press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or press *9 if you're joining from a landline or cell phone, and we will be able to unmute you for 3 minutes of public comment. We don't have any in the room, so just waiting to see if there's any online. Again, you can hit the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen, or I think it's next to your name if you're on a cell phone. And I don't see any, so I will return the meeting to you, Chair.
All right, why don't we open it for EQC discussion? Do you want to go?
Okay, I'll start. So this is great. The first time I saw the reference to it, I was so excited. It has a lot of material, wonderful. There's some feedback along your questions. There is so much data, it's hard to find what metric is what. So searching through metrics is complicated. Sometimes I was looking in particular about solar renewable energy type of thing, and depending on how you look for it, you'll find it or you don't find it. So I don't know what's the best way of doing that, but certainly it's an easier way to navigate or tags, or I don't know. I mean, the material is great. It's just a bit hard to find it, right?
Thank you for
on
the feedback.
Yeah. So on the specifics, two things. One is for some of the data, it's not clear to me whether it's cumulative data or not. It looked like it's not cumulative, but sometimes it feels cumulative, right? So it's like when you're showing year over year, is it just the 1 year data? Say at solar
Yes.
solar installations. So it looks like it's per year. I'm not sure about that because that's a lot of solar installations for San Mateo, right? So I wasn't sure about that. But related to that one is, how do I find out the raw data for all of this? So when you say, there's just a short comment, but it's not reproducible. I cannot use that to double check. Really, this means that. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a reference to the census, but I mean, the census is billions of data points.
Yes. So to your point, my understanding is that the metrics are not cumulative, that each year is represented individually, but I'll double check that with our data guy.
Yeah, I can send you a
confirm that.
specific graph that I'm curious about because it's a very nice graph, but it sounds like it has a lot of data points. So I did a download, which is wonderful that you can download the raw data. And
yes,
then I did
that's what I was going to mention.
I wasn't sure that it was right, but that's what I mean about it's like I have my own way of getting that data. I haven't done the cross-checking, but and it's not the same way that you have listed there. So I would, as somebody interested in the topic, I would love to know, how did you exactly get that number? And then
we can certainly talk more about that offline if you can let me know the specific data point that you're looking at. I will mention that we have recently been working with the Department of Sustainability related to the greenhouse gas emissions data that is collected through the RICAPS program. Our data is a little bit different than what they've been using, and we're working on pairing our data with theirs so that cities have more consistent information. But sounds like you're looking at solar installations, not greenhouse gas
that was
emissions.
just one in general, but I mean, you have this automated, right? So somewhere there is a piece of code that actually pulls the data from somewhere and constructs all of this, right? So you know, it's a San Mateo County, right? So it's full of geeks, right? So everybody wants to be able to reproduce this data, right? So it's great that you have the sources. If you can spell it out to the point that somebody that's interested can actually reconstruct this data, then you're going to get comments like, oh, you know, this thing doesn't match what is from PG&E interconnect data. And then you will learn something and we will learn something. But just saying that it comes from, the solar comes from shovels.ai or something like that, I don't know what that is, right? So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? It's like the more you put it in there, the more we can help you.
Great.
But it's wonderful data. It's just wonderful data. It's just delightful. It was a lot of fun to go look at that.
I love hearing from people who love data. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I
You
want
gotta
to,
follow that though, by the way. So
Right.
there you go. Yeah,
well,
that's
me
great.
being not a data geek, I also really appreciate the data that you all have put together because as a commission, we've been asking for more and more data, and it's just so great that you all are putting this together. I was curious about two things. One is, so I'm figuring out how to do the search. So I figured out how to search for solar.
Yeah.
But one piece of data that I think would be really helpful to report on is air quality. And I didn't see that anywhere, but I think that would be helpful for all kinds of health metrics as well as things that we're trying to do around climate resilience. So air quality is one. And then the other one was related to the urban forest. And I see that you all have data from 2018, and we're kind of wanting to track the data, every year, every month. And I was wondering, how do you actually get the data? Well, on the urban forest, but also from others, and how might we be able to speed up the, or even automate the inputs so that we can have any of that information available?
Those are great questions about all of the different data sources and how we can speed up or automate importing the data. My understanding is that Google Earth is now making more urban forestry information available, but it's not available for every city within San Mateo County. One of our challenges is trying to provide equal data to all cities and the unincorporated areas. So we've, paused being able to incorporate their data into our maps. But it is something that we're working on, and I think they have plans to expand the geographic region that they cover. I'll look into how often the urban forestry or canopy information can be updated and let you know.
Thank you.
One small add-on to that, it might be worth reaching out to the nonprofit Canopy because there's a new GIS survey being done of the entire state in one of the universities in Southern California somewhere. I just cannot for the life of me remember which one, but I want to say it's fairly current, and because this university is probably going to be fairly available as well. So it might be worth reaching out to them because I know they're in tune with the very latest on the canopy coverage.
Great, thank you. I also wanted to make a comment about air quality. I don't actually have the dashboard open in front of you right now, but I think that you can find the PM 2.5 statistics. So I recognize one of the challenges is the volume of metrics that are there and not necessarily knowing what to search for. We are thinking about an augmentation that's related to grouping similar data points and like having a dashboard page that allows you to see a data set that's all interrelated. So if you're interested in air quality, we would highlight the 10 different points that might be related to that.
Yeah, I'm doing the search and I'm not finding it. Like I searched PM 2.5. But
yeah,
maybe we can.
PM ought to do it if it's there. So I will look into that then.
Yeah,
That would be
I think
super
there's
helpful.
one list of being added, but I don't think they're live yet.
They're not, oh,
Yeah, if you add in some dashboarding, it would be wonderful to be able to share dashboards with other people. So that, yeah, because this type of conversations where, oh, have you seen that this, and then if we can send an email with a link to the whole thing.
so there is a button on the dashboard that says share link, and it will copy the specific metric that you're looking at in that moment and allow you to paste it into an email or text to share that.
Yeah, I saw that one. Thanks. I mean, if you can create groups, then do the same thing with the grouping.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My other fantasy, well, maybe not so fantasy, but one of the goals that I have is being able to select multiple metrics and see them overlaid on each other so that you could look at, for example, canopy and demographics in the same map at the same time. But
Or air quality and
They're-
asthma, canopy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We
there's-
share your desire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if there's any chance that we might be able to partner with Menlo Park and, embark on a project where we can make these augmentations together, that would be fabulous.
Indeed.
So I'm
We'll
gonna,
send Eduardo over.
so I'm gonna jump in because Sarah and I had a chance to meet, and the one that Ori was at the launch, and Sarah, I don't know if you remember this, but
Mhm.
we, there's also the opportunity of my fantasy, which everybody knows at this point, which is the counting exercise. And I love the ability to look at electrification of residences, but I don't think that's as meaningful as being able to say, building by building, lot by lot, how electrified are we? And what's our United Way goal of getting to, 100% or whatever? So one thing that we could consider, that the reason that I wanted to trigger that comment was, Sarah and I briefly said, well, that's just a partnership with Menlo Park. It would require a little funding. It would require building that. And then that might be a useful drill. So it goes 2 levels deeper than what's there today, but it's the most useful way to kind of say, here's where we really are relative to total electrification. And here's the areas of the city that need more work. And here's where they don't need more work. So that is potentially doable. We would just need to partner with the team here and, kind of build it together. And then hopefully other cities would see that and realize it's an amazing way to look at their city and then replicate that across San Mateo County. So
Yeah, so I looked at this some months ago, and I mean, at this dashboard. Do I remember correctly that this is done outsourced by a consultant that has a project of doing things like this? Because I bumped into somebody, okay,
Yeah.
I think I even tracked a bit of the technology behind that one. I mean, the guy looked like very willing to extend the system and add functionality and stuff like that. Maybe there is some way for us to use some of that extra funds to do something like this. Because I would love to find it out at okay, my pet peeve, which is distributed energy, right? But at the level of substations.
Yep.
It's like what's happening in the Willows, for example.
Exactly.
Right.
because
I mean, the guys seem to be doing a relatively extensible piece of software for this.
yeah, because I think it just guides campaign outreach. It guides where we need to focus the energy, where we need to make people aware of what their options are, what the subsidies are. I mean, sorry, I'm not going to get on the soapbox again, but like that micro targeting, like let's say District 5 is the problem, then we would know that and we could spend a lot more time in District 5 than we do in District 3, so it's just this ability to drill down and go, if we're really going to accelerate, like John said, and get, make these goals come across faster, I think we just have to be able to do more micro targeting than we're able to do at the moment.
Depending on where the data is coming from, it may already have the geographic data to actually narrow it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll put it in the list.
Sorry, yeah, we could talk about that offline, but I will put it on the soapbox. Are there more questions for the group? Any discussion? Yeah.
You asked about recent successes, and I just wanted to share that Menlo Spark recently completely electrified 6 units of affordable housing in the Bellhaven community. So I think that's a big success. And while we're at it, I'll just nominate them for a Green Building Award. Seriously. And maybe that's something you can start tracking too, is affordable housing electrification. But thank you for the presentation and for all the work that went into putting this incredible tool together. It's really helpful. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Were there other questions you wanted to discuss? Maybe it would be helpful if we put them back up.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Were there other things that you were hoping to get from the EQC as far as just feedback or ideas? You had the slide that Nancy mentioned.
Thanks, Rachel.
Well, we have actually learned quite a bit about how you have been using the data or the dashboard and what other kinds of data you're interested in seeing. We've we're certainly curious about any other current projects or recent successes that you might want to share. I think Molly had mentioned in her presentation that there were a couple of points where you seem to be doing really well, and we're always interested in learning more about the causes, what's enabled you to have that impact.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously.
I mean, I was
the-
looking, I'm part of a subcommittee on distributed energy resources, and I was looking at installations of solar, rooftop solar and then a storage battery, and the data doesn't come, it's a bit old. And then there was this question about whether it was cumulative or not, but that type of information is very useful. And I don't remember whether it had any data about sizes. I think it was just numbers of number of installations. It didn't have anything about how large the installation. So, but I mean, at some point, right? Yeah. But that was quite interesting. Just even to just ballpark the data, the amount.
Right.
One other bit of feedback that we don't talk about it very much in the EQC, but the intersection of all this stuff is really important, and there are other entities worth talking to. So it might be worth spending some time with Adina Levin, who is looking at the integration of the transportation system. And so I'm just there were a bunch of questions I wanted to ask about commuting and vehicle miles traveled and other things that I don't want to bore the group with, but I think those have direct impacts to climate. And although we don't talk about them very much, Adina is out there trying to gather data from all the different agencies, all the different transportation agencies. There is an emerging agency that's going to kind of be governing it, but it might be worth getting in front of that and, pulling information from Samtran and Caltrain and BART and other sources, because obviously those all lead into the climate discussion in addition to the, transportation discussion. So anyway, just something to.
Yeah. So I am in touch with Adina with Seamless, and we have had a member of the Samtrans San Mateo County Transportation Authority on our board as well. So there's a fair amount of overlap and information that's being shared there.
Yeah, that will be really helpful, only because she's trying to make the different case for integrating the transportation systems, but it has such huge climate impacts and getting people out of their cars that it'd be great to help reinforce that with our city councils, our, board of supervisors and stuff. So great. Any other?
I guess a quick question for you. Do you think that your intended audience knows about you?
That's always a great question. I think there's a fair amount of confusion about SSMC as a nonprofit organization and the county level Department of Sustainability. And some people thinking that we're one and the same. We're not. We do collaborate with the county department, but we are separate from them and have a slightly broader purview. I don't think enough people know about what we're doing and how we support each of the cities and the county, all of the committees that we're on, and the ways that we're active. So any help that you can provide in helping us get the word out would be greatly appreciated.
Yep, will do.
Great.
All right, well, I think unless there's anything else, this item doesn't require any kind of a motion. It was informational. On behalf of the group, thank you so much for coming, and it's exciting to see it. A lot of us are data geeks in the room, so we really appreciate you making the time and walking us through it, and hopefully we'll be in touch.
Very good. Thanks so much for having us. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, why don't we move to item D3 on the agenda, where we'll review and discuss the heritage tree ordinance, administrative guidelines. So this is a presentation that will be made by Ms. Lunker.
Yes.
And I will share.
Please, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. It is already dark outside, so it feels late, but we're not even at 7 yet, but feel free to get up, get tea, use the restroom. Tonight, I'll be providing an update on the Heritage Tree Ordinance admin guidelines. We've talked about this several times, and I thought it was appropriate to give a formal update. The purpose of this presentation is to share background on the Heritage Tree Ordinance and the city's efforts to update the administrative guidelines to protect Menlo Park's urban canopy, which we just learned a little bit about from Sustainable San Mateo County. Yeah, I'll do this by providing background on the ordinance, including the EQC and Public Works and other city departments' roles, how the ordinance is implemented, and some draft updates to the admin guidelines and next steps for finalizing those updates, as well as some heritage tree related resources. So the city adopted its heritage tree ordinance in 1979. Since then, 6 amendments have been made, with the latest beginning implementation in 2020. The purpose of this ordinance is to ensure that there will be a significant population of large, healthy trees over the long term, and to protect and preserve the scenic beauty and natural environment, prevent erosion of topsoil and sedimentation in waterways, encourage quality development, provide shade and wildlife habitat, counteract pollutants in the air, and decrease wind velocities and noise. To achieve that purpose, the Heritage Tree Ordinance covers the following for heritage trees: looking at maintenance and preservation, removal and major pruning, permits and decision-making criteria for tree removal, appeals for tree removals, establishment of a heritage tree fund, administrative guidelines, heritage tree replacements, enforcement and violations, and urban forest data collection and reporting. I'll take a step back and define what a heritage tree is. It's a tree other than oak that has a trunk with a circumference of 47.1 inches, a diameter of 15 inches or more, or is measured at 54 inches above the natural grade. It's any oak tree native to California that has a trunk with a circumference of 31.4 inches, diameter of 10 inches or more, measured at 54 inches above natural grade. It's a tree or group of trees specifically designated by the city council for protection because of its historical significance, special character, or community benefit. I believe the EQC got its roots in protecting trees, and that was the start of the EQC many, many years ago. And the EQC has maintained that in its annual work plan. And this year it's captured well with 2 goals, including leveraging best practices to advise and recommend the preservation of heritage city trees, and expansion of the urban canopy, and in making the determinations on appeals of development-related heritage tree removal permits, like the EQC did in March of this year. And each year, the EQC receives an annual arborist report, so we are pretty well versed in what Public Works does and all the great work of our city arborist and the tree team. And they have the unique responsibility of managing the implementation of the Heritage Tree Ordinance. This includes managing any actions to a heritage tree that may require a permit, including the removal or heavy pruning of more than 25% of the canopy or root system for private heritage trees, or the removal of public street trees due to development. So taking a closer look at how Public Works manages the implementation of the Heritage Tree Ordinance, we have the permitting process outlined here. This is not a new slide. This I borrowed from the arborist's annual report. But to review it for folks joining new to this conversation, an applicant would submit an application form, a city-approved arborist report, and a replacement tree plan for non-development and development-related permits to remove a tree. Generally speaking, the applicant is encouraged to plant a tree on their property. For non-development-related permits, like such as a homeowner looking to remove a sick tree, they are required to replace the tree based on the tree trunk's diameter. For development-related tree removals, they are required to replace the tree based on the tree's appraised value. So that the spirit of that is making it easier for homeowners, a little bit more owners for developers. However, if there's not place to plant a replacement tree, the applicant can pay an in lieu fee or plant a smaller tree and pay a smaller in lieu fee. And then emergency removals are coordinated directly with the city arborist. So another component of the implementation of the Heritage Tree Ordinance is the administrative guidelines, which we discussed in March of this year. And these help staff implement the policy by providing supplemental procedures to further explain compliance with the Heritage Tree Ordinance. For example, the admin guidelines include a list of acceptable replacement species, the appeals process, and definitions for removal. The guidelines are updated and implemented by our Public Works team, and they do not require EQC or city council approval or public comment period. So after the EQC discussed an opportunity to update the admin guidelines during the March 20 meeting, staff began reviewing the guidelines, agreeing with the EQC's assessment that there were opportunities to update how we are implementing the Heritage Tree Ordinance. And so I'm excited to share some of the areas that Public Works staff have identified for updating the admin guidelines. And I'll read through these because I feel like that we've been waiting for months for these, so it's worth spending time understanding each of these. So the first one is updating the method of classifying multi-stem trees, change it to be consistent with industry guidelines in the 10th edition of the plant appraisal. And this is on page 1 of the guidelines. And then adding a process for reviewing trees proposed for removal due to conflict with an existing habitable structure. For example, the tree is right next to a house and is damaging the house foundation. Adding a requirement for completed tree risk assessment forms for trees proposed for removal due to high risk. Adding species to the list of invasive or undesirable trees. Basing increased costs of construction, labor, supplies, nursery trees, tree maintenance, and additional costs. Increasing the thresholds for evaluating whether it's financially feasible to alter proposed construction to preserve a tree. Changing the requirements for removal of trees due to utility interference. Adding and removing tree species from the recommended heritage tree replacement list. So these updates are not final yet. It's a teaser, and you'll notice that they're presented on the slide rather than in the actual admin guidelines template that we have, which I'm sure you're all familiar with how that looks. And I have a printed out version if anyone's interested in seeing that. But these will be added to the template, which will be published with the EQC's agenda packet for the November 20th special meeting. And at that meeting, the EQC will further discuss the admin guidelines and gives additional feedback to staff on any recommendations for the admin guidelines. And not calling it kind of like a courtesy checkpoint, but it's not a part of the formal process. And so we'll take the feedback and staff will consider it, and then they'll publish the final after that. And then questions in the meantime can be emailed to sustainability@menlopark.gov, or you can, how to reach, Ori or myself, or Liz on these topics. And then finally, leaving some resources, next slide for the group. And these, again, we've seen before, but there's a great portal to learn about the Heritage Tree Ordinance and to understand all of the materials that come with submitting a permit for removing a tree, as well as a data portal for seeing statistics on permit applications, submittals that the tree team maintains. So with that, I'll stop the presentation so we can have time for discussion. And I think what would be most helpful to guide today's discussion is to really capture any questions so I can bring them back to the tree team and we can get those answered for the November 20th meeting. Also to get any initial reactions, if this seems appropriate and aligned with what we kind of talked about in March and the months preceding, or sorry, the months after March. And then if there's any creative ideas or common sense ideas that just aren't on here that we could add maybe before the November 20th. Does that make sense? I guess we can go into clarifying questions.
Yeah, why don't we start there? Because I think there's could be a lot of discussion on this one.
Would you say you have a copy of the actual proposed administrative guidelines that maybe the tree team could take away and look at in greater detail between now and our November meeting, or do we need to wait for the agenda packet to be published 48 hours before the meeting to have a marathon?
Yeah, I can check in with Jillian and Joanna. Even today, we're still kind of circulating and adding things. I have a copy of the current admin guidelines, so not the exciting one.
What's currently being used.
Yeah, so it's currently being used. But I will check with Jillian and Joanna to see if we can circulate to the subcommittee before the November 20th packet.
That would be helpful, even a draft.
Yeah, it has gone through city attorney. So right now it's really just kind of staff formatting and adding additional things.
I had another clarifying question. Would you say there's an overall desired impact you're hoping to have with the changes? Like I'm seeing some things around consistency but is there any other like strategic high level thing y'all are trying to achieve?
Yeah, there's definitely was a need for consistency and for providing clarification. I know one of the big pieces was around the clarification of measurement for multi-stem trees. So measuring at the point where the two are joining rather than like the left or the right trunk. And the spirit of that is to be able to protect more trees. And so that was kind of the ethos that Jillian and the tree team took, was how can we protect more trees, value trees in a way that's more consistent with industry, which is giving them a higher value. And one piece where there was some challenges was thinking about the guidelines can't supersede what's in the heritage tree ordinance. So they can't make a rule in the guidelines that conflicts or contradicts what's in the ordinance. And so it's really just helping to clarify the ordinance and where possible, give the city arborist authority to give higher value to trees and which would hopefully protect trees, because it means that someone would have to plant a bigger tree or pay more and would deter.
Thank you.
Could you, this is a clarifying question and it doesn't sound like it. Could you say that one more time relative to the admin guidelines? The admin guidelines do move us toward higher dollar value per tree, making it stronger protection. So outside of the ordinance, or will the ordinance need to be updated to make those protections stronger and the values higher?
No, the guidelines can reflect the higher values.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that one, can you show 239? Because I don't see it in there. That is slide 9. Am I missing it? Where does it say what you just said?
It's the third from the bottom.
3. Oh, but this is just financially feasible. Okay. Then I have a follow-up
Yeah.
question, but I'll wait.
Yeah, because part of mine's gonna be follow-up questions as
That's
well,
different, but
because I'm not sure if I heard that correctly. But why don't we do this? Are there any other clarifying questions before we move on to public comment? We can get with the meeting. No. Great, then, Ms. Lunder, do we have any public? Oh, go ahead. Sure. There.
So we'll open up public comment now. If you're in the room, get that card over to us. Okay, we have one public comment in the room and we will call for public comment online. If you're on Zoom, you can hit the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or the left of your name if you're on your device. And then if you're on the phone or landline, you can press *9 and we can unmute you. And we'll have time for 3 minutes. And I'll get that. Okay. You have it up?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't see any comment online, so we can start with the in-room comment from Scott Marshall, and we'll just get our timer up here.
And reset, so you get your full.
Yeah, hi, as you know, I was a member of GHC and then I was a member of the Heritage Tree Task Force. So we reviewed the Heritage Tree Ordinance, oh my gosh, probably 6 or 7 years ago. It's great to see the staff is working on making updates because things change over time. One thing that's always been an issue with the Heritage Tree Ordinance, especially when it comes to design and construction, is it seems like a plan is submitted and then there might be there's a tree there and they may have been unaware that there was a heritage tree in the building envelope. And so the Heritage Tree Ordinance seems to be reactive. What would be great is if there was something when a property was sold and a new owner is buying it, that the heritage trees were indicated on the property. Like prior to selling a house, there's always a property inspection, which is of course for the building itself. But if there was something the city could do that wasn't terribly taxing or costly, where they could say, okay, on this property, there's 4 heritage trees and they're marked here. And then if someone wants to draw up a design, they already know the trees are there instead of coming in and saying, we want to, build out here. Oh, but there's a heritage tree there. Now you want me to adjust my plans. And of course that costs money and no one's happy with that. So my suggestion, and it's just to get something down when the property is sold where the heritage trees are indicated on the property. And I think it would save a lot of problems with, at least when it comes to construction, about having to, have a permit to remove it. And then there's, people who don't want to remove. Everything else looks good, but that's just one of the things that for years we've been talking about that. And it's always after the fact that there's a debate. And if the trees are there to start out, then maybe a design would be designed around it instead of trying to make it through it. So, thank you.
We have another minute.
I think
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
Is that an interest to have the city keep a repository of how many heritage trees are on each parcel of private property? And then when, I'm just trying to understand the trigger or who's collecting the data in your model.
Well, I would think with individual properties, you buy the house, you get your deed and it says you have 4 heritage trees. Obviously, the city at some point will know with a canopy assessment, what are some of the heritage trees in the area, but not every one, of course, because trees grow and trees fall down. I mean, but yeah, for individual properties, I would think they'd have something. And maybe when, it would be nice if when property was sold, if there was a registry of what's there, but that might be too much work. Yeah. At least so the owners know what they have.
There is a new California law that will require tracking that for electrical assets. Something having to do with if you have some, whatever, I mean, it's something that will need to be updated. So it would be consistent with that. It's like you're buying something, here are the things that you have to keep in mind.
When you say electrical assets.
I don't remember the details, but it's something having to do with whether your panel is okay or whatever it is. And I think it's looking forward. It's like, okay, we're going to be replacing with heat pumps, so you have to keep that. I actually, we'll talk about that in the subcommittee. It is effective. It just got approved.
There's no more public comment online or in the room, so we can close public comment.
Great, yeah, thank you. So why don't we just keep jumping into the discussion? Thanks. So, yeah, open this one up for EQC discussion.
We may have the same question.
No, go ahead. I need to get mine.
So on the value, my recollection from last time was somebody or more than one people pointed out, just because so you take a heritage tree that has been there for 60 years, 80 years, 100 years, and it has all these values that we admit of that. I mean, we value in that tree. The replacement value should not be, at least several of us were saying, the replacement value should not be, oh, we put a tree of the same species. Essentially, it's not, it cannot be, oh, we put a tree of the same societal value, because that's going to take 60 years, but it cannot just be putting a tree of the same species. The real value of that tree is not that it's a live oak, is that it's a 60-year live oak.
Yeah, sure tree.
It has a huge value. So it should be taken in, put it there in consideration. And I don't see it in there. I think that bullet number 3 doesn't seem to cover that.
I can clarify. So the 10th edition for tree appraisal calculates a tree value by taking into consideration tree size, diameter, cross-sectional area, how much it costs to purchase the species from a local wholesale nursery, the tree condition, health, and structure, and how appropriate a match the tree is for the site. So the tree size, which is tree age, is a part of the formula.
Yeah. So I mean, literally, we know this, right? I mean, you walk by a sidewalk and there is an old tree, the temperature is significantly lower in that. You replace that tree with another live oak, or whatever it is not going to change.
It may not live either.
You may
See a lot of plantings.
That's right, that's right. So it seems to me that, because that will, if the value is high enough, the person that's trying to replace that tree may think it twice before cutting it down.
Well, I'd like to follow up on Scott, because I think, having done this with respect to easements on a property, like when you buy a property, it discloses all the easements,
Right.
right? It seems like that's the same kind of information, because the heritage tree inventory doesn't change dramatically on a property. If you've got a 40-year-old tree, it's not like next year you're not going to have one, or next year you're going to have 5 more 40-year-old trees. So I don't think it's going to be, the initial startup process will be involved, but maintaining it will not. And to Scott's point, I mean, one easy way to do that is every time a property is sold, do have an inventory of heritage tree. Because I completely agree with what you say, is we get into a contentious situation when the new property owner comes up with a development plan unaware of the heritage tree requirements and positioning, and then they come back and fight.
Yeah.
Right, whereas, and it's all, it's going to cost me this much to change my plans. Well, if you had started out knowing that you had these constraints, just like you have constraints for easements, then you would plan within that boundary and wouldn't have all this contention.
Absolutely.
And I think I want to add to that. I have a few comments, but there's real evidence of that happening today, but at a much larger scale. So I met with the developer of the 80 Willow project.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And then I went that's when I saw you at City Hall that day. I was sitting there studying the applications, and the developer had done a lot of the pieces of the application that aren't due until a little bit later in the process. And I don't have the notebook with me that I wrote this down in, but they had already done a heritage tree study. Now, of course, there are a ton of heritage trees on that site, and don't want to go down that path, but this was a developer who'd already made that investment to track these trees and talk about what's going to be done with them. So it's not unheard of that it's being done. It's just not being done at a residential scale. But I know that they I don't know that they altered the design based on it, but there was a heritage tree report, and there's, plans for what they're going to do with some of them, and some of them.
And I think that's required as part of the development process. So maybe we make it required as part of the residential.
Yeah, and the only point being, like, they had identified place by place, tree by tree, what they're going to do, and so it's a feasible thing to do. We just have to make it easy, basically. Yeah, the only other thing I also wanted to build on Eduardo's comment is it feels fuzzy. Sorry, this isn't the recommendation, but it just feels fuzzy if we say there's two things that we absolutely wanted. I think the thing that came through, the consistency and clarification for what you presented, that made sense. You could see that in the staff recommendations. the value and the stronger protections part didn't come out as strongly, because if I was gonna look at stronger protections, I would want to see, okay, these are the three ways that this is gonna more protect the heritage trees. And then we had this gray space of, replacement value versus an actual 60-year-old tree that, like, we're not gonna replace it with another 60-year-old tree. So the stronger protections has this idea of trying to keep the trees in the ground. And it didn't come across as strongly as it maybe could have, without a little more voiceover. And then the higher value to me is just, it should be more expensive. It should be, we should be able to say, okay, the value was $200 to remove a tree and now it's $1,200 or whatever, whatever we can do to.
Even make it a sliding scale, like if it's a really big tree, it just starts to go up
Yeah. And my worry is, and I don't know how to overcome this, but, I think we saw it as it's 2 inches short of being a heritage tree, and it's so like, how do we account for these things that still have these tremendous values, but fall so close to the threshold that they don't get the extra protection? I don't know. It's the kind of eco warrior side coming out and going, no matter how many samplings you put in, right? So anyway, I just wanted to provide that feedback because it didn't feel like there were stronger protections of higher value. It might be embedded in the slides, but it didn't come across that way, and I could see people reacting to that.
Can I ask a clarifying question? For stronger protections, are those ideas such as requiring a heritage tree plan at the site at the time of submitting your plans? Like something like that, or what type of?
It could be, or it could be, I think I was probably thinking of it in more general terms of like, how are we making it harder to take heritage trees out? Whether it's residential, whether it's improving Coleman Avenue, whether it's, whatever it happens to be, how are we just making it more of a challenge? Because we'll never quite truly put a dollar value on some of these things for all the, we'll never get to the true value dollar wise. So yeah, it was less specific than that, but more like, how do we just make it harder to take trees out of the ground?
And I'm thinking harder could be two things. One is they don't get approved for removal, or it's so much more expensive that money can then be redirected to plant other trees in other parts of the.
Potentially, but I think there'll always be. But like, I'm on Coleman, what's interesting is the little roundabout things are built around trees. There's amazing trees in the middle of Coleman and they built a roundabout. And, you don't ever want to hit one of those things, but they preserve those trees. So there's just creative ways to, creative ways to just keep them in the ground.
The other thing, exactly, I think what can we do to do that? I wanted to share with the EQC Commissioner Hill's idea that she and Chair Schmidt and I have been discussing in our subcommittee, just at a very high level. This idea around having a formula to determine the value of the trees with like 5 different factors, and it would kind of be that sliding scale of, if it's like if there's one tree and it's a really big tree and it's the only tree in a certain area, there's a higher value. Whereas if it's one big tree, but there's a lot of other big trees, maybe smaller. And then maybe if it's in a zone where like the air quality or the overall canopy is lower, that there would be a higher value for that tree to be removed, et cetera. So she had, I know she talked about it with Rachel, and I think you were gonna talk about it with Jillian. So I don't know if you want to add more to that, but I think there's really something there that I would love. I think we have a chance to actually discuss in November. So
would that be implemented in the administrative guidelines, or does that have to go into the ordinance?
That's the intention. If staff thinks it's manageable and they like it. Would you add anything to that overview?
Yeah, that was well said. I did share her formula, and we can include that in the minutes perhaps, with the arborist. And she said she would be reviewing it this week or next. On a first reaction for myself, I'll share, I had concerns around equity, thinking about it being more expensive for a resident in Bellhaven to remove a tree versus someone here. But on the flip side, when we think about large developments, and so thinking about those different triggers, and thinking about maybe applying the formula to development related tree removals versus a tree being sick.
Yeah.
So I'm not an arborist. I'm not also living in the heritage tree ordinance and kind of the nuance of what's the policy versus the admin guidelines. So I'm letting Jillian sort that out. But I did get a good understanding from Susanna and shared with her, and we can share it in the minutes. So.
So I think the main thing I'm hearing from the community is if someone is, you know, tearing down a house and building something that's $5 or $6 million, like a lot of people in the community feel like they should either be able to design around the heritage trees or they should put a whole bunch of money into the fund to make sure trees are planted in the community.
Or replace the old tree with another
Well,
old tree.
and that,
I mean,
well, it's hard
people
to replace
are
them.
spending
Yeah.
gazillion amount of money. So-
exactly. But like, you know, this $1,000, even $5,000 is not gonna be enough to stop them from, you know, if you're spending that much money on a project. And similarly with the large development projects that, you know, those need to be having similar considerations. We're less concerned about, you know, the individual, you know, in a smaller home that's, you know, has a tree that's dying or sick, or, you know, is causing potential damage to their home. Like, I don't think we should, I don't think any of us want that to be more expensive for people to remove. But these other circumstances, we're like, we should find a way to keep those trees in the ground.
That's helpful, additional context I can share.
I have a strange question as well, and we don't have to dive into it, but I'm learning the joys of trade-offs.
Just now.
Yeah, I know.
Where have
Well,
you been the rest of
I
your
was
life?
gonna say, like, normally,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
normally you
You're
can
open.
just like go, I love trees, they should stay in the ground. But like, here's a good example. So Coleman Avenue, 20 years in discussion, Coleman and Ringwood. You know, we need to improve that stretch of street, and it's a separate project, and the trees are talked about, but like, I know that street because I go down that street every day. And so I guess the part of the question, and hopefully some of the refining, is as we make improvements that tick one box, like complete streets and road safety and all that, trees are often a victim of that. And I know they're accounted for in the city process, but I guess the question becomes, we talk a lot about residential. We've kind of lightly touched on development, but it's the same thing. You know, we need development, like say in downtown, but how many trees are we going to remove when we do the development of downtown? You know, so it's just something I think we want to make sure we don't lose sight of, because the trade-off is like kids on bikes, people on bikes versus, I don't know, 30 trees along Coleman that are going to probably need to be removed. So anyway, I'm bringing that up because it's not just residential. And how do we account for that? You know,
It's a really good point.
and I wouldn't want it to delay the road improvements on Coleman for another 20 years just because there's 30 trees that are coming out. So I feel conflicted. Sorry, the reason I brought that up is I feel super conflicted, right? I want the road improvement, but I don't want to take the trees.
Now you're making me go and look at the Coleman plan.
Take a look.
Because
City council next week.
because I have opinions about that.
But it's true. I mean, and so and it's gonna happen every development, you know, the 80 Willow development. You know, all the big developments have that, and those have big impact. I mean, sorry, I'm stating the obvious, but those have huge impacts on the county.
Yeah, but that particular problem could have been solved when things happened years ago, that the seminary piece of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'll clarify with the city arborist on public trees for city development. So I have clarity on what happens with public trees for private development. But not so much how they're addressed for city.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many there are. It's just that Coleman is like front and center now with both the county and the city. And I think it's actually
Absolutely.
being reviewed next city council meeting. So after 20 years. Yeah, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Just a question on the tree values. I know we talked a lot about that. But you had referenced earlier, Rachel, about the 10th edition for plan appraisal. Is that like a new edition that the city hasn't been using and now they will be using it as part of this guideline change? And it has a more robust formula for protecting trees, is that correct?
It has a more robust formula for valuing trees, and so the missing link is if it's more expensive to remove the tree, that you would keep it. But we talked about the reality is folks will just pay it. But yes, it values a tree at a higher amount, so the in lieu fee would be higher.
Okay, maybe a clarification in this, well, I don't even know if it's necessary, but just that the city will now be using this
Yeah.
updated edition. In their guideline process.
Yeah, I can send that updated edition in the minutes as well.
That would be great. I have something to build on that.
Okay.
Is maybe instead of referencing the 10th edition, we say the most recent edition. So that when they publish the 11th, we don't have to update the administrative guidelines.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and maybe there's even a cost of living adjustment, not cost of living, but like an inflation rate or something else that happens. Because if this is being used across the country, it's much more expensive here to, construct and to build, like to plant a tree and to maintain a tree, I imagine, than, many other parts of the country. So we might include another modifier.
And the modifier was most recent, and what was the second
I think
modifier?
most recent, and if we had some type of cost of living adjustment for like Menlo Park compared to, say, the US on average. That could be another way to account for the value of a tree here. As differentiated from the rest of the country.
Did you have?
It's separate, so if you want to.
Well, it's sort of building on that too, and it's a question that's bugging me, and I don't know if there's an answer. Like a lot of the criteria that you listed off around size and other things were about the characteristic of the tree itself, but it wasn't about the effect that the tree has on its environment. So shade, air quality, beautification, etc. Is that too hard to quantify to add to the value of a tree, or is it just not in this edition? Because that was what I was hoping to see, and if it requires too much guesswork on our part, I understand that. But then I think when we approached this and we were hearing the feedback from the community, it was, these trees are, I'm not a baseball guy, but they're a multi-hitter, like they can play first base and second base and third base, and they can do all these things. So why aren't we quantifying the value of them based on air quality, beautification? So I'm curious. I get the characteristics of the tree themselves is where the basis is, but can we add those other things? Is that doable? Is it not easily referenced? I mean,
Isn't that part of Susanna's formula that we've been discussing?
yeah, but I didn't see it. The reason I'm asking the question is I didn't see it in what staff had put together.
Well, yeah, because they just discussed it, I think, on Monday.
Yeah, we discussed
Oh,
on
was it
Monday, so
Yeah.
Jillian, and Joanna opened it and went, ooh, this is gonna take more than, 15 minutes to look at. So they're setting aside time, hopefully the end of this week or early next, to really understand, that. But yeah, that formula I don't know if it included shade, but it did include air quality. It included canopy overall as a metric.
Well, maybe a different way of asking the question is the sources that the values were pulled from. That's why I was asking the question relative to the book or textbook
Yeah.
or whatever it is. It sounds like none of that was incorporated in there. It was just the characteristics of the
Correct.
trees. Okay.
Right, so all that kind of social benefit, climate benefit is not currently a part of the 10th edition. And we'll see if we can add those into the Menlo Park formula.
Yeah.
And I think the limiting factor will be if it supersedes the heritage tree ordinance. And the arborist thinking around best practices, what's feasible.
So I guess building on that one, maybe an interesting thought exercise would be take the current climate crisis, move it forward 5 years. Look at what the temperatures are going to be around here and see the impact of removing a tree in Bellhaven. And what's that going to cost to the surrounding space around that, and see whether this formula is going to help with that. Because that's my main concern. I mean, you even here in the Willows, removing a tree, you can feel it. Right? So in a place like Bellhaven where there are so few trees.
Well, and I have to believe the science exists to say species, size, environmental impact, species, size, average shade provider, average heat dissipation. Like, I don't know because I'm not that deep into it, but I would have to imagine that data exists.
It certainly exists for species and GHG because we use that for the CAL FIRE grant.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that the point that you were making and Susanna was making is that the same tree in different locations, in a different surrounding is going to have a different impact. The disappearance of this one tree has a very different impact if it's close to two other big trees or is just providing.
Which is one of the nice things in the formula is
Yeah,
sort of the amount of
I
trees.
love that formula.
I do too. I'm hopeful. And we're gonna be coming back with formal recommendations around that in the November EQC meeting. And hopefully by that time, staff will have had a chance to digest it a little bit and help us understand if it's doable.
Yeah, because that's the hope is that I get that the textbook or whatever it is only includes the characteristics of the tree, but there's so much that the tree does based on those characteristics that feels missing at this point.
Mhm.
And, you know, I mean, it's fine. It's a draft and we'll figure it out, but hopefully we can get there.
But I think at the very least, using the most recent guidelines, that will help.
Yeah.
And then we can add our Menlo Park uniqueness on top of it.
Mhm.
And talk to the.
Thank you for being
Yeah.
and for carrying the ball to the
Yeah.
Public Works team.
Yeah, and I think that the devil will be in the details with that one because some of the, for folks who haven't seen the formula, there's some, assumptions or baseline data. And as we just saw with Sustainable San Mateo County, there's a lot of different places to get some of the same data sets. And so, I think even if it is interesting, something we can move forward with, it would take a minute to kind of evaluate all the data sources and multipliers and make sure we're choosing the appropriate one.
Well, hopefully, to Scott's point about getting to the process earlier, it's a bit of a virtuous cycle because it starts to educate people about why we would want to protect these trees in the first place, not just because they're beautiful and nice and they're trees, but they have these benefits that people don't always just think of, right? So it'll make the medicine go down a little bit easier if people have to account for those in their design plans and other
I
things.
think it would be wonderful if somehow, this might be a bigger stretch, but when you're buying a house, you see, oh, and I have this tree that produces this reduction in greenhouse gases of this number. It's like, what you have.
So for the sake of time, I just want to check to see if there's any other comment. Oh, yeah.
I do have, but John.
Yeah, please. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think the baseball reference you were thinking of was utility plant.
Thank you. Yes.
But just to build on the public comment and just a question, like, maybe does the city already have some sort of an inventory of heritage trees? And if so, is that public information? And if not, maybe we could start to create that sort of information that's available for people to already have, like, at least it's available for them to see if they want to search for it. And then if this sort of disclosure requirement becomes a reality, then that could be used to build up that current inventory that might be incomplete.
Yeah, so we do have an inventory of public heritage trees and public trees. And we're kind of at the precipice of the opportunity to do the urban forest management plan. We do have $250,000 in our CIP budget. And the EQC would be a part of scoping that plan. And so maybe using that funding to do an inventory on private trees and kind of early conversations with the tree team. Private trees were not their priority necessarily for the urban forest management plan analysis, but that's something I think we could discuss. So public trees, yes, private trees, a lot of more uncertainty. Maybe the urban forest management plan is a good time to inventory those. And then we could reopen public comment at any point during the discussion, Jeff.
I'm just guessing, but it would seem like private trees are the largest percentage of the canopy, so.
It's the biggest opportunity in Bellhaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can come back to it because that, as you dive into the aspects of that, it's been a long time for the private. There's been a long time since there's been a private inventory, and there's multiple ways to kind of take a bite of that. So I'm happy opening it back up for,
I think Eduardo had a comment too.
oh yeah, Eduardo, and then we'll go to
okay.
maybe Rich.
So this is a clarification question. So what's, if any, the interaction between this and ADUs? In my limited experience with ADUs with the planning commission was a case, I think I've mentioned this before, where there was one property, one development, redevelopment of a place, and the design was a house that had on one side a garage and the other side had a room, and it was symmetric, and literally it was by flipping it so that the portion that was closer to the heritage tree was designed as an ADU, it went through. I mean, essentially the ADU trumped any heritage tree is gone. Same design with that part being a garage, then the heritage tree would have had priority. But it seems to me that the way the ADU is designed, my understanding, which might be totally wrong, is that ADUs trump any heritage tree. And the heritage trees are gone.
ADUs do trump a lot of other, setback requirements.
Right.
Lot size requirements, so there's a lot of.
So my clarification question is, does this change anything about the ADUs, or is ADUs still trump?
It would make it more expensive to remove a tree for an ADU, but you would still be able to pay that in lieu fee or plant a replacement tree on the property.
So the only mechanism to address, to alleviate the impact of ADUs is still the cost.
Yeah.
The value of the tree.
Yeah, for ADUs, and maybe, or you have more information here, you would be required to provide alternative designs. But I don't know at what point in kind of the planning authority, they say, oh, you have to use that one because it doesn't conflict with the heritage tree. So that might be something we get back to you on.
Yeah, I mean, at least as an outside attendee to that meeting, the argument essentially was along the lines of, oh, it's too hard to do it, and we really need the space. Whatever. So it didn't go anywhere.
It is an interesting question, though, with respect to Chuck's comments about trade-offs, because the city is highly motivated to increase the housing stock.
Yeah, on the other hand.
Wasn't it the state rule?
Yeah.
Not as much
It may
as.
actually be, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm somewhat skeptical about the benefits of ADUs on the stock.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anyhow, this was a clarification question.
And we'll get back to you on that one. Because, yeah, I think it'd be interesting to explore more what happens at the planning counter with those alternative designs that are required for development. Thank you.
Why don't we open it back up if that's all right? I think there's a hand up.
Sure.
Are we okay doing that?
Yeah, so we'll take a pause from discussion to open for public comment. If you're in the room and you'd like to make public comment, you can fill out a public comment card and return it to myself or Ori. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, or if you're calling in, you can press *9 and we can unmute you. And it looks like we have one hand raised online from Rich Whipfler. And Rich, you'll have 3 minutes and we'll start with you. And we'll unmute you. Allowed to talk. So you should be able to unmute now, Rich Whipfler.
Hi, this is Kathy, Rich Whipfler's wife. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, hi Kathy, thank you.
Hi, I've been a resident of Menlo Park for many, many years, and I've noticed a couple of development plans where neighbors have submitted permit requests and they haven't identified that there's a heritage tree on their property. So it's not till at the very end when construction's happening that someone notices, oh my goodness, there's a heritage tree involved. And I was wondering if the process couldn't be changed where when a permit is requested, that someone goes out and analyzes whether there is a heritage tree involved rather than depending upon the property owner identifying that there is one. That's it.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that very much. Are there any other public comments? And we could potentially respond to that as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, I don't see any other hands raised. And I don't see any cards in the room, so I think we're good to close public comment and feel free to discuss that.
Is that the process today? Is that it's driven by the property owner? Because I did think that, yeah, how's the heritage tree identified in the process?
So there's triggers for arborist report, and so you need to submit an arborist report with your building permit application materials. So for a new home or substantial additions and renovations on the residential side, those require an arborist report, and in that arborist report, there's a number of different criteria that need to be included. In one of those is an inventory of heritage trees.
Got it.
Huh. It makes me wonder what was missing from the public commenter just now.
You may not be aware of requirement.
Or is
Yeah,
is
other,
that every,
the hand is up again. If we want to hear from them, I'm just wondering, like, what is she seeing that,
It's different than most.
Yeah.
yeah, we can.
like, that we could close the gap?
Why don't we clear, I mean, it's fine, we're not gonna put it back up, but
Kathy, did you hear that?
it sounds like I don't think she lowered her hand. Sorry, I mean, I think she raised her hand again.
She's muted. There we go.
There I
There you
am. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what happened was that as a neighbor, you don't know that the development's even happening. And then all of a sudden you see that someone's doing something right up to the base of a very beautiful tree that might even impact your own property, like, kill it. But when we requested the building permit to be questioned, we looked at the building permit, and the property owner had not identified there was a heritage tree. The building department had not identified there was a building tree. A heritage tree. Nobody had identified the heritage tree except us, and it was too late.
Twice.
And that happened to us twice. So something seems amiss, that depending upon what the property owner has identified as their inventory of heritage trees doesn't seem to be sufficient.
That's super helpful. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you for caring. I mean, I love these trees. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So maybe that's just a data point. I think we can take, it sounds like either the process broke down. Or there wasn't a verification in a couple of instances. Yeah, okay.
It sounds like our current procedure.
Should have.
To have caught
Yeah.
something didn't happen the way it's supposed to.
Is there anything we need to examine relative to that? I mean, is there anything we need to go back and ask?
It could always be that construction started before the permit was issued.
Or the arborist didn't
Or the
didn't report something that they should have.
I will clarify with the arborist when the arborist report's required.
Okay.
As well as kind of daylight that example, and I'm sure, Jillian's relatively new to the role, and I think has alluded to that being kind of the Wild West of the past, and she's done a lot to clean up the process, but.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
clarify.
Yeah, sounds good.
Did talk about the fact that she does go out to every site if there is a heritage tree identified in the plan.
She only goes there if
If it's identified, right, so that, an arborist may have accidentally or intentionally not mentioned that there was a heritage tree.
And well, I think now the city requires that a city approved arborist submits the arborist plan for development. So all developments would have to have one of those plans, whether they have a heritage tree on it or not. And now the assumption is that it's someone who's trained by the city to understand what our heritage trees are and that they would capture those in their plan. But I do see that Kathy has her hand raised again. If you'd like to continue the public comment discussion.
I'm sure if there's any other quick clarification, I think that would be good.
Kathy, I'm asking you to unmute right now.
Okay, here I am again. So the issue was that no one visits the site until the end of the building process if the property owner has not identified a heritage tree. And there is no missing them. If you go to the property and you look, whoa, there's an enormous redwood tree. There's an enormous oak tree. They're right in your face. But the building process missed it until the very end. And the building construction had actually started before anyone caught that the tree was impacted. And this happened twice, and it's happened over many years. It's the process, 2 different properties. It's just seems to be a flaw in the process that no one goes to just check that the inventory of the trees is accurate.
Quick follow-up, how recently was that?
I would
last-
say
Yeah, go ahead.
it's within the past year and a half, 2 years.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll take an action. The staff will follow back up with the arborist and get a sense of why that might have happened and to check the process to see if there's any flaws. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you for bringing that up. And yes, we're definitely a team that wants to protect as many trees as we can. So thanks for bringing it up. So why don't we do another quick check for the sake of the order? Any other discussion about this one? As expected, we thrashed that one pretty well.
It's a true or one.
Yeah, okay. So if everybody's okay with it, why don't we move on to the final agenda item, if that's all right?
That's great.
Because we don't need a motion, that was information and robust discussion, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It helps us all, and we'll get back to you in November.
Yep.
And we'll see if we can share anything prior to the 20th packet. Thank you.
Excellent. So why don't we take a few minutes to go through item D4, which is to receive and file the 2024-2025 Environmental Quality Commission Work Plan. The City Council approved the EQC's work plan on September 24th. And this item is to receive and file the approved work plan. Any clarifying questions from the EQC? I have one right out of the gate. What does it mean to receive and file the work plan? Do you need to review it with us again, or what are we actually doing with this stuff?
No, it's more of an administrative piece to, well, receive and file it. And we'll post it online and share that with the clerk. So no, we
it
don't.
was approved by the city council
Yeah.
without any modifications.
Correct. Yeah, I think like a couple commissions did have modifications, so the receive and file is a little bit more action oriented.
Oh, I see. Okay. So there's no presentation there or anything. The work plan was approved as is. Do we
Have a motion.
Yeah, do any other clarifying questions aside from that very basic one? Any other clarifying questions?
It's an amendment to the work plan.
Is it amendment to the calendar?
Yeah.
We can do those outside of kind of formal action. So if you want to share it to the chair, then the chair can share it with staff and we can update it. Unless you want to discuss it. Whatever the process is. Yeah.
Happy to discuss. Well, why don't we see if there's any public comment on the receiving and filing of the work plan?
Sure,
Do we need that? I think,
we do.
yeah, that's a
we do.
fourth. Robert's rule.
Do we have any public comment in the room? It doesn't look like it, so I'll refrain from those instructions. If you would like to make public comment and you're online or tuning in by phone, you can press the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen or press *9 and we can unmute you to make public comment on item D4, receive and file the Environmental Qualities Commission's work plan. I don't see any online. So I return the meeting to you, Chair.
Great. So we can open it for EQC discussion on the topic. We're also happy to have a motion on the second for the agenda item because apparently we have to do that to receive and file the work plan.
And we can thank the subcommittee who spent a lot of time putting it together. And it was great that the city council received it and that we followed the book and gave them something really thorough. So thank you. Yeah, we can take a motion.
Yeah, a discussion or motion, either one.
I move that we receive and file the approved work plan.
Great.
I was just gonna ask on number two, ensure that our vulnerable communities have a voice. Have we moved further along in terms of like hosting a meeting at the Bellhaven Community Campus?
Yeah, so you may have noticed some of the city council meetings have had like a satellite site at Bellhaven. And that's why, while we're still trying to get the AV working over there. So it's purely kind of a technology issue at this point. So hopefully we'll have that resolved soon, but I know city council's been prioritizing that. But yeah, it would be great, especially as we're looking to recruit in the new year. We haven't lost sight of that.
Great, thanks. I'll second the motion.
I was just gonna jump in real quick. For the December item for calling for meeting cancellation, there's a typo.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I just
Thank
just
you.
adding that.
And I'll be following up with an email for that.
I think we have
Thank
a
you.
motion and a second. Maybe Ms. Lunder, please state the motion.
Absolutely. Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Kissel and a second from Commissioner McKenna to approve the to receive and file the 2024-2025 Environmental Quality Commission work plan. And then we'll do a roll call vote. Chair Schmidt.
Aye.
Vice Chair McKenna.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill is absent. Commissioner Headley LaRocca.
Aye.
Commissioner Kissel.
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Pelegri part.
Sorry, I was slow here. Can I?
Is it about the calendar piece?
Yes.
Could you share any ideas with the chair and the chair can make those edits?
Sure. Yes.
Because only the first page was approved by council, so we can make edits.
Aye.
We're really only filing the first page, yeah. Okay, and with that, we have the motion passing with 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and absent. Thank you.
There we go. All right. So we'll expect a couple of emails on calendar. I think we're on the home stretch here. The last item on the agenda is item E, reports and announcements. So now let's potentially hear the reports and announcements from staff and commissioners. And as usual, why don't we start with staff?
Sure. Okay, so exciting update on the city's electrification efforts for city facilities. So we participated again in the Wildan program as part of the PG&E government through K-12 buildings. And so it's a program to get water heaters at no cost to the city. And so we enrolled for City Hall and the Burgess Pool for the pool showers. And we've secured $122,000 worth of water heaters, no cost. And we're hoping that installation will happen for this building and the Burgess pools for the showers by the end of this year or early 2025. On the topic of looking for funding opportunities, we recently attended an informational session put on by MTC for a number of planning and capital project grants. And so we'll be convening a group of staff from transportation planning and CIP to review potential projects ahead of the deadlines. And we did just want to flag the deadlines in case you're working with anyone else, or if someone's listening. The deadline for the planning applications for those MTC grants is November 20th, and then December 20th for capital projects. And several of them are federal grants, so there is 11.47% match requirement, but we'll be looking at that as well. And it's great timing ahead of the CIP budget planning. The next kind of, again, in the spirit of grants and collaboration, we've been working with the grant writer on 2 grant applications. So and also in partnership with other agencies. So one is the SB1 Caltrans grant to develop the climate adaptation plan, and then the EPA community change grants for the environmental justice element implementation. And that's all I have. I can turn to you.
Thank you.
Rachel.
Okay. I have some updates on events. There's a lot going on this fall. Tomorrow, the Bay Conservation and Development Commission, BCDC, has a hearing on the Regional Shoreline Adaptation Plan, which is a requirement for all jurisdictions to develop a climate adaptation plan, either working as individual jurisdictions or in kind of sub-regional groups. And they have a large document that dictates how cities should approach these plans. And they will be doing a hearing and getting public comment tomorrow on that. On Saturday, there is the Flyway Trail opening at Bedwell Bayfront Park. That's an important connection between Bellhaven and Bedwell Bayfront Park, enabling residents to more easily access the open space. And sustainability in our arborist will be tabling. So feel free to stop by and say hello. There's another event that day, but I'll let others share about that. On October 22nd, the Air Quality Management District, BACMID, has a public learning session on the appliance rules, and the intended audience is residents and community members who haven't been in the weeds on the ban of the sale of new gas, furnaces and hot water heaters. And so it's a good educational opportunity to learn about where the region's going. On October 23rd, the Air Resources Board, in partnership with CRC, is having a listening session on statewide air quality rule changes. I just learned about that one today, so I don't have all the details, but I can send around a link, or it's tinyurl.com/carb-listening. And then November 13th, the CPUC is having an energization webinar where they will be giving an overview of their newly approved timelines for energization, which will be really fascinating in terms of understanding how long it will take the utilities to provide new electrical service to buildings of all types, so new development or remodels and renovations. And
So
spoiler,
basically
it's
what capacity build they're committing to?
what timelines they are holding PG&E to energizing buildings.
So it's having capacity.
Correct, yeah.
Can you share that info?
Yeah, I'll share the link.
Yeah,
for
that would be interesting.
Yeah, and then we have two other city events. We have a compost giveaway. It's starting the 18th at Bedwell Bayfront Park. And the pile will be available ongoing, so it's not like one singular event, but you can go and pick up a bag of compost and mulch. And then we also have a household hazardous waste event on Saturday, November 9th. With San Mateo County Health, where you can bring hazardous materials to our courtyard for disposal. It's at our corporation yard.
I have no idea.
333 Burgess Drive.
Thank you. It's not,
How do I find out about that?
I'll send you a link. Yeah, I'll send a link.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, and then generally we try to post these in our weekly digest with the city. We can send a link to sign up for that as well.
And does the link clarify what is covered?
Yes. Yes, there's a whole list of acceptable items.
Yeah, plutonium, probably.
I once went to a place for this and they said, oh, that's too easy. I was like, okay, what do I do with this big battery?
Yeah, they won't take, well, I'll let you read it. I'll stop there.
Why don't we go around the room and any updates from commission reports and announcements?
In the theme of events happening this Saturday, October 19th, is the electric home tour sponsored by Actera. So if you're interested in seeing electrification like in the wild, you need to register. But then there's many homes throughout San Mateo and Santa Clara counties.
Yeah, I hear that there are some interesting houses.
Indeed.
Are you doing?
Yeah, I know for me personally, it really helped to talk to other homeowners with similar design challenges to help me get over the hump to finally take the steps. I'm pleased to report that my home is fully electrified and I'm happy to show it off and serve tea to friends.
Did you disconnect the gas?
It's in process.
Okay.
They've approved my request, waiting for a date.
The cabana we were staying with in the Redwoods had induction, so we enjoyed induction. And I was trying to figure out how to not get things burned, so I can buy a Utah.
Yeah, you can totally test it out.
Sounds good. Other updates? I've got a couple. So one, it's more of a general thing to be thinking about. There was an article in the Almanac this week around Canopy, some of the work, Canopy, the nonprofit organization, some of the work that they've been doing in Bellhaven, around working with all 5 school replacements and, community planting and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty deeply involved with Canopy and on their board. So I was there to kind of witness it. But one thing I didn't realize with all that work was they're starting to focus on things around asphalt replacement. And that All 5 project is a really interesting one where it's not just that asphalt replacement. So they pull up asphalt and they replace it with green space, trees, things like that, which is a sort of a more advanced version of climate protection beyond just putting a tree in the ground, right? So it's just something I wanted to flag for everybody, because as we're talking about trees a lot, there's different variations of what you can do. There's public planting, there's private planting, and then this asphalt replacement thing is something that Canopy is going to be focusing on more and more where it's possible and feasible. And it requires more city support and other things, but check out the Almanac article because it gives a pretty good overview of what they're doing. And as the group discusses this kind of stuff moving forward, it's a great idea to say like, where can we tear up some asphalt and reduce some of the early heat as a result. So I just wanted to flag that for everybody. Second thing I wanted to flag was, so as we get closer to November and Measure U school bond, as John knows, that's the very first tranche of work that Menlo Park City School District is doing with the idea of a climate action plan eventually being developed by the school. And a couple of things were really interesting. So I saw Kristen, the superintendent, this morning, and she's super excited to talk about that next phase of work with the school district and whatever that might be and wants to learn from the city. So we'll start those conversations kind of after the bond is out of the way, because that's the first phase. The thing I've learned in the interim is I would encourage everybody to be thinking about that, because although people sometimes say the fire district, the city, and the school are separate and they have separate governing bodies, it's clearly written in the general plan of the city that there'll be more interaction with the school district. So not that I recommend everybody go back and read the general plan, but there are programs and priorities and goals that are stated in our city's general plan that we're meant to be working more closely together. So the fact that Kristen has convened an informal group is great, but it might just open the door for more opportunities for collaboration for those who care about like the K-12 aspects of this stuff. And then the last thing I'll mention is relative to events, Saturday event as well. So you could do it before you go see Nancy's house, is the pancake breakfast with our climate warrior friends, the fire district. So from 7:30 to 11 at on Middlefield, they have the annual pancake breakfast. And if you want to go hang out with firefighters and talk about climate, then
who's going to be there? It's going to, the board is going to be there, or is it the firefighters?
It's the
rank and file?
I think it's the rank and file firefighters. I don't know if Mark's I would assume Mark's, the fire chief's gonna be there as well, but it's early enough that if you've got other things going on Saturday, I've got another thing going on, but I plan to go get pancakes at 7:30, so.
Yeah, so I'm interested in advocating for the fire department being more efficient about permitting for storage for batteries.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably the wrong level, right?
Potentially, it might not hurt if Mark's there, it's a good, if the fire chief's there, like, it's a good idea to ask. And I plan to go and lobby for how do we win the next round of CAL FIRE. So I'm gonna have pancakes and do a little lobbying for their.
Okay, pancakes are good.
Yeah, so anyway, those are three.
That's this Saturday?
This Saturday, 7:30, it's at the Middlefield main fire station, 300 Middlefield. And it's a pretty fun event, so.
Cool.
Thanks for anything. Thank you.
I think that was it. Unless there's any other items, we can adjourn.
Well, we get to vote between now and the next event, the next meeting, so
right.
go vote.
Go to a vote. That's right. That's something. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that adjournment?
Oh, yes, sorry. I thought I said that, yeah.
Okay.
We are officially adjourned. I need a gavel, right? Like, yeah, need to institute it. Put a hand in your hand, but when you get up and.
Hey, John.
Camera for.
Question for you. So on the, I tried to listen, well, I listened to some of the CAC.
Yeah.
It's hard to know who's saying what.
Yes, so
Oh,
the same thing. I, so.
One of the members that are